to another episode of Analog Catholic. I'm Rob.
And I'm Ben. And today we are going to talk about social media and its many uses, the good, the bad, and the ways it can be used virtuously and to evangelize online.
If you enjoyed this episode and want more of Analog Catholic, go to analogcatholic.com to subscribe or subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform.
And don't forget to rate and leave a comment. It goes a long way. Also on our website is our shop where we have various goodies like stickers and tote bags.
Yes, I'm very excited for the tote bags. All right, Ben, let's begin. So, Ben, social media. I uh I use it. You really don't, I think. Maybe. What are
I
you
well,
what are your thoughts?
well, I've
Why don't you drop all your personal social medias real quick?
yeah, I
Yeah,
will. I'll link them all in the show notes.
there you go.
Um, no, I when I was in high school, I had social media, and then I deleted it all. Um, and then recently, I've been on Facebook, just for work stuff,
Mhm.
um, because that's where the kids are. They're all on Facebook, which is not true, but that's what I've been using. Just yeah, for different work things. But besides that, I don't have any social media. I'm so happy about it.
I Yeah, I want that freedom. I'm almost at that freedom. I had Facebook because of my previous job, like needed me to have it, which is, you know. And I deleted my Facebook 2 weeks ago now. So my Facebook's finally deleted. So
Yeah,
my last social media is Twitter, but my new job requires me to use Instagram.
uh,
So now I'm on Instagram and I don't know. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of any social media really, but I'm there and I'm on it and I hate it. But I think we have the opportunity right now to go through this episode and explain the pros and cons of social media and also some spiritual benefits, but also spiritual pitfalls for sure. Um, and I also have some hot takes about evangelization and social media and the internet in general, but we'll get to that later. What were you going to say, Ben? Sorry.
well, I was gonna say I noticed you deleted your Facebook because you're in a Facebook group with me, and I saw that it was like an unavailable account.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, but you want to do pros first? Or you want to do cons first?
Let's do
What
pros
kind of
first.
person? Oh,
Oh,
optimist.
we clearly do not plan this out. Well, I'll do pros first because I feel like it'd be shorter. I
Yeah. Oh yeah.
no bias, but
Definitely.
I feel like we're gonna list off the pros in a much quicker time. Uh, all right, I'll do a pro. I think my first pro is, and this is partly why I don't, irregardless. Oh gosh, that's terrible. Regardless of work, I probably would maintain at least one social media account for the sake of connectivity with like family and friends that are long distance. So I see that as a pro to the use of social media, which is another form of contact with friends and with family that you otherwise probably wouldn't have a lot of contact with. Um, I know things like Facebook, like Facebook's usually the better one for that. That's what I was using it for outside of the work was it was just where I stuck all of my family and friends into one online social media where there's a connectivity. Not that I ever used it for that, but I've since, as I said, deleted it because really I just don't want social media. But that's a pro that I have is it's just that social connectivity for long distance relationships.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that was my holdout. Like Facebook was the one thing, like the account that it still existed for me for a while. Then I deleted it, and then I had to make a new account for my job. But um, yeah, like that's definitely it was nice because I think that's something that if you in theory kept up with, I didn't keep up with it, and so there was like a lot of people that I knew from high school, and then a lot of people that I like didn't talk to anymore, and then a lot of
Yeah.
people that like yeah that I am much closer to that I was just not connected with on Facebook at all. But like yeah, keeping up with those things, I think it's nice too, and it's nice for like networking in that way too.
Yeah.
I know like LinkedIn is sort of traditional business one too, of like that's sort of a networking tool. But I think Facebook, I've seen that used in that way too, of just like you make connections with people, um, and it's helpful. Like I think the more kind of mature in the career world, not that I'm super mature in the career world, like the more I see like just having a general connection to people is helpful,
Hmm.
um, just in your career and in your ability to do your job and like advance. And so I think that's a helpful thing is just, yeah, general networking and then like keeping in touch with people that you like meet one time. Not in like a deep way, but in like being able to contact them if you want to. Um, or like with LinkedIn, like you see what they're up to like in their careers and you can sort of make connections that way that again like could lead to advancements or collaboration kind of thing. So I think that's yeah, like a similar thing of like connecting with large groups of people and like nobody's going to text or call or write letters to everybody um, that they want to tell about significant life events.
Right.
And so if you're the type of person that wants to update people on those things, which I don't think like is innately bad, I think there's like privacy thoughts that I have on that. But like yeah, like you have a baby and you just like want your family to see a photo of your baby. Again, like I have privacy thoughts and putting photos of your children on the internet, but also like
Yep.
if it's somewhat managed, like I think that's good that you can like post a photo of your baby and your grandmother and your aunt and your cousin can see it without having to text all these people individually or call them and that kind of thing. Like ideally you're calling them too, but you get my point.
Yeah, and I mean that's definitely all around. I agree with that, especially what I'm sure will be your thoughts on privacy and posting photos of children on your social media. I think you and I probably gonna agree with that one. But the not just family and friends relationships, but the work relationships via Facebook too is also something I noticed, which because it's one of those things where my previous job I was networking in the area, and I would meet someone, I'd be introduced to someone, and then the next day or two we friend each other on Facebook. We don't necessarily have to talk again. It's not that we hit it off super well, but it's this, okay, we've made a connection. There's something, I could reach back out to you. You could reach back out to me about something down the road, and we're not complete strangers. And that was sort of the signal when you friended someone on Facebook was, okay, I'm not going to treat you as like an utter nobody next time we talk. There was that sort of assumption. And I know LinkedIn exists to specifically be professional networking. And I have a LinkedIn and I keep it updated. Not that I update it frequently because I don't change my jobs frequently. But I feel like no one really uses LinkedIn other than people that use LinkedIn, if that makes any sense. Like
Yeah, it's just
it's a very like the people that are actually using LinkedIn for the function of LinkedIn is probably a very small amount of LinkedIn users. I feel like it would basically I've personally this is definitely biased because this is how I treated LinkedIn or how I treat LinkedIn because I still have a leaving profile, but it's Facebook for networking. But I even then I don't even care. I think at one point I was like maybe I should do this, and so I started connecting or whatever the LinkedIn term is with a bunch of people. And that went nowhere. I mean, like they accepted it, but like what I've done nothing with that. Like I've never actually communicated with these people or used it to further my career or get advice or mentorship or whatever other possible reasons why you would do connecting on LinkedIn. So, but yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. But all right, do you have another pro or we tapped out already?
I think that's the general pros.
That's it. You get the one general pro, which is just sort of a nice way to connect. And I think I want to piggyback off another thing you said, which was the not everyone that you add on social media is someone that you would text or call or write a letter to. And I think that's one of the things with social media that has allowed us to maintain us as in humans to maintain connectivity at a superficial level that otherwise we just wouldn't. Like I kind of like what you're saying. My old account before I deleted it, I don't know, half of them were people I went to high school with, maybe half the friends that were on Facebook, maybe a little less. I never talked to them. again. You know, we friended each other in high school, and then I left. We graduated, and we never talked to each other again. So why are they on my face? Like okay, it's like interesting in a very kind of busybody, nosy neighbor way of like, ooh, what are they doing with their life? Like, oh, they had a kid. Oh, they got married. Oh, they got arrested. I don't know. But it's like other than that, it's like, what's the purpose of this information for me? To keep up with local gossip from my hometown? Like, I don't need that. That's not spiritually beneficial at all. That's not practically beneficial at all, other than spreading gossip, which is not good. Because I don't maintain a friendship with them, so it's not like a conversational piece I'm going to have with them. So I think part of it has allowed us to also maintain these superficial relationships that otherwise we wouldn't. And the question is, well, why are we maintaining them? Is it because, hey, maybe one day this person and I will become friends? Well, then why don't you reach out to them now and try to make that friendship happen? Is it because one day, I don't know, or I don't know. I don't know. That's the thing. I really don't know. Why would you maintain that connection with them? That was sort of what I got to because my 10-year high school reunion came and went, and they didn't do anything. My class never did anything, and that was sort of also one of the last reasons why I maintained a Facebook was just for, like curiosity to see if they're going to do a high school reunion, and I figured Facebook would be the main way they would do it, but no one did it. No one took the lead on it, so I was like, all right, then I'm really just done. I don't really care anymore. So, but okay,
Yeah. No,
yeah,
I agree. And I guess maybe to um sort of jump off of that, like I think when I look at my wife, I think she she's on Facebook, and she does it well, um, which I don't think I can do. And I think that's part of why I land on like I don't want any social media,
yeah,
because she's connected with people that she went to high school with, and like people that she doesn't necessarily talk to as much anymore. But like she went to high school like around where we live,
hmm
at least like the later part of her high school, and so like she'll see these people and she'll have conversations with them, which
yeah,
is I would never do that. like when I'm in my hometown, and it's different because like I don't live kind of like nearby
right,
where I went to
yeah,
high
yeah, yeah.
school. Like and I see people that I recognize, like I avoid them. Like I try not to talk to them. I hope they don't notice me kind of thing. And I'm
Yeah.
sure they're doing the same thing. But she's like very it's just and I think it's partly like a woman thing, like just more relational. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, she like cares about these people, um, and like not in an over invested way. And so I think there is like a good way to do the I have Facebook account and I'm connected to, people that I haven't seen in 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think there's a healthy way to do that. Um, but it's not something I'm necessarily interested in, and it's definitely something that you could do really unhealthily,
Oh yeah.
like the gossip route, or just like
Yeah.
yeah, like caring too much about people that aren't necessarily in your circle,
Yeah.
because like you only have so much ability to care.
Yeah.
Um, so I think yeah, I think in my eyes it's like too much for me. And if I were to try to do it well, I would fail, and there's no reason for me to try. So
I appreciate the humility
yeah,
I think one more pro I'll throw social media's way because we've kind of been focusing on Facebook, but this is a pro that isn't associated with Facebook at all. Mostly Twitter, which is or X now, sorry, the official name. Uh, News, sort of like up to date, instant, unfiltered news, which has its pitfalls, like with just disinformation, misinformation, like all that kind of stuff. But I've found for the most part, you're going to get to the truth a lot quicker if you have a carefully curated Twitter feed, as opposed to just reading headlines or like mainstream media news. Um, this really hit home. This is like always kind of been a thing, but this really hit home like a month ago. I started listening to the radio in the car because I wanted to stop. I didn't listen to music every time I got in the car, but I just wanted to stop listening to music in the car for a little bit because it's one of those things where it's like, why am I listening to it? Am I just putting it on for the sake of noise? Like this isn't really worth it. So I was like, I'll put radio on. I'm maybe listen to some talk shows, see what's going on there. I've sort of gone back to podcasts, but when I was doing the talk radio, I was doing talk radio. I was doing classical music. So the classical music station near me is an NPR affiliate, which I think is like mostly how that goes anyway. And as I'm driving home from work, the NPR affiliate like stops the classical music and goes to a news section. And in the news section, they say um, it was something about like, oh, this person accepted money from Russia and they paid these like conservative influencers. And the setup and the whole conversation, like the whole thing that the newscasters were saying on NPR was like, oh, this is because obviously Russia finds Trump favorable, so they're going to pay people to promote Trump. That's what NPR said. That's literally how like, not exactly word for word, but that was what they said. I go home, I go on Twitter, I look into this, I find out almost immediately on Twitter the person being paid, yes, they were quote unquote a conservative influencer, but they're on Twitter telling people not to vote for Trump. So their conservative identity was being used as a, hey, look, I'm someone that's anti-Trump, that's on your side, listen to me. And so I'm like, okay, if I didn't do that, I would have just thought Russia was paying people to promote Trump because that's what NPR said. That's what mainstream media just told me. But then I go on Twitter, I go into the details, I look more into it, and I'm like, okay, this is the reality. Is this person because it's the person's Twitter account has her posting anti-Trump stuff. So it's like you can't even like what are you even trying to say at this point? Like the reality is she wasn't promoting Trump. The reality is what she was trying to get people not to vote for Trump. So getting that raw unfiltered news is definitely a benefit of a place like Twitter where you're just going to get it, which of course comes with the drawbacks of sometimes people just lie, sometimes it's misinformation, sometimes it's really biased people, so you got to really take it with a grain of salt. But that requires you to develop a filter, understand biases, do all that stuff, which of course means you got to invest a little bit more time into the social media. So it's sort of a, you know, you can't just walk into Twitter and get the perfect timeline of accurate, unfiltered news sources. But that's definitely a pro that I've noticed with something like Twitter, and that was just like a real world example. Something that was like so blatant to me, where it's like they're literally saying the opposite of what was happening on like the mainstream news on NPR and the radio. I'm like, that's just like that's too ridiculous for me. Like it was like almost like a joke. I was like, this is like almost comical that they're literally saying they're implying the exact opposite of what the reality was. So that's another pro in my thing. But I think we got some cons we got to get into.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry. One note on that
Oh
though.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I've never been a Twitter guy. But yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense to me. I think we should definitely do an episode of the future on the media. I think that would be a cool
Oh, that'll be a good
and
one.
productive conversation.
Yeah.
Also, I think definitely the classical musical station that I listen to is an NPR affiliate, but I don't think they have news.
Huh.
Sometimes they'll have news on like classical music, but
Hmm.
so that's
It
nice.
just
So you
depends.
should
Yeah.
move up here to Maine. You should come back.
One day. One day. All right. You got any cons?
No, I don't think so.
No, no
Um,
cons for social media.
no, I think we referenced a lot of the big ones.
Yeah.
But just yeah, like the big thing is it's every single form of social media is designed and engineered and tested and just the point of it from like a program perspective is to be addictive. And so these things, every single one of them is designed to keep you on the social media, which is terrible.
Yeah.
And even just the thought of like it is like the algorithm that for like the whatever the explore version of when you're not seeing what your friends have, when you're seeing what like other people have, like those algorithms that show you what to see on your feed are not designed to give you what you find the most interesting or to give you what you would enjoy the most or what would be the most fruitful for you, but it gives you what would be most likely to keep you on the app.
Yep.
And so a lot of times that's not like what you would find the most interesting, but like what would kind of subconsciously push you to like continue scrolling, which is so scary. And it's scary how much data these companies have and the fact that they're just able to keep doing that. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. And that's part of why I want to get rid of Facebook was Meta is really, really, really bad with that stuff, which of course they own Instagram. Um, but yeah, the like as you were saying, like the scrolling, the algorithm, the colloquial term is doom scrolling, where you just scroll That's it. You're not even entertained. You're just scrolling because it's just a constant feedback loop of, oh, this is new, this caught my eye, blah blah blah. I'm just gonna keep going and going and going. And they're usually short little bits, so you don't feel like you have to commit to anything long, so you're actually more likely to stay and watch it. And it's crazy. And everyone does it now. Facebook does it, Instagram does it. Twitter did do it with like they had tried doing like a stories-esque thing, but they stopped doing that. But Twitter, as it's designed, is meant to be instant refresh, instant gratification. YouTube does it with YouTube Shorts, right? Like get you addicted to just literally scrolling through videos. And of course, the largest, most aggressive version of this is on TikTok. I've never had a TikTok. I'll never have a TikTok. I hate TikTok. I hate Snapchat. Snapchat's also horrific with this kind of stuff. And all of the stuff that they pushed was like almost always sexual in design, the Snapchat stuff, which is like why I deleted like 5-ish years ago or 4 years ago. Because I'm like, I don't even know why I barely use Snapchat to begin with. And then on top of that, the non-social media aspect of it is just them putting, borderline pornographic images on your screen. I'm like, what is the point of this? I don't want this, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and the Instagram thing, the Instagram algorithm's horrific. Algorithm is horrific. My homepage isn't even my stuff. It's not even stuff I follow. They just put random stuff in your homepage, and then an out of order, non-chronological postings from the people you follow. I'm like, this is so dumb. Why? This isn't even functionally what I would want at a minimum. Now, I'm not even talking about the explore page. I'm talking about like the feed of people I follow. Like, there's people in there I don't follow. I don't want that. And then the posts that are there, they could have been posted 3 days ago. They could have been posted 2 days ago. They could have been posted right now. I have no idea. But they disappear immediately too, because if you refresh it, it changes the homepage again. So it's like, again, like you were saying, it's not designed for what I want. It's designed to keep me looking at the screen.
Yeah.
And it's just so bad.
Yeah, like even Facebook, like see, I've been using Facebook lately for my job, but I hadn't used it, like not with any level of consistency in like probably 5 years.
Mhm.
Um, and Facebook is wild. Like I definitely when I used to use Facebook, it was like only your friends were on the homepage. Like I
Yep.
think that used to be the thing. Because now it's yeah, like it gives you just random stuff like you were saying about Instagram. And like yeah, it's not stuff that is interesting to me, but I often find stuff that like makes me stop and be like, this is weird. What is this? Which
Yeah,
is like the point. Like they want you
exactly.
to like be like, this is a strange thing. And so like I'm trying to like it engages me to like look at it or to like keep looking at stuff because I'm like I don't understand. Like, like it's stuff that's not stuff I would enjoy, but that's like relevant enough that I like kind of get a little hooked and like almost like vague too. Like the stuff
Mhm.
that's it, like gets pushed to me is stuff that's yeah, like vague enough to get me to be like, I want an explanation for what this means, and so I need to engage with it. Which is yeah, like it's so wild. Um, and yeah, it's uninteresting to me on like a surface level, but like again, even just using Facebook for work, like I find myself interested in that home feed that's going to give me just random stuff, um, which is crazy.
Yeah, like there's no way to have a clean feed in any social media anymore. It's littered
Right.
with ads, littered with accounts you don't follow because they're like, "Oh, this is trending," or "Oh, this is based on things you like or whatever." And that's it. It just fills up your feed with all of this, basically what's equivalent of like internet junk food to get you hooked, to get you interested in to stay on the screen. And it's just pernicious. It takes over a lot of your time. And 90% of the time, it's just not a beneficial thing to you. It doesn't benefit you spiritually. It doesn't benefit you financially. It doesn't benefit you socially or emotionally or any of these things, you know? I mean, there's so many studies out there now showing you like, hey, yeah, social media leads to like drastic increases in depression for teenagers. Okay, so why do we have teenagers on it? Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like, if we found a drug that did this, they would be banned, but social media is permissible because it's just social media. It's like, no, it's clearly something else going on. It's clearly an addictive product, and it's clearly not healthy or beneficial for anyone. And there's people that use it to build their personal business brand, and so they make money via social media because they have a brand that is on the other side of things. They're the advertisements. You're the one getting hooked. You're the one saying, okay, that's a funny ad, or that's a cool looking ad, or I keep seeing this ad. Let me finally click on it to see what it is. And then you buy a product from them. So it's like, okay, they're using social media to make money. But overall, like, what are you getting from it? How is it making you a better person? You know? And most of the time, I don't think anyone can say it is making them a better person. There's, but I'm going to put a pin in that. So when we get to one of our final points, I'm going to kind of reference that. But do we have any other cons, or do you want to kind of move on from this?
Yeah, I think we hit all of them. I think just a note on Snapchat,
Yep.
off of what you're saying is like what. So we talked about how Facebook is like maybe better or is has a usefulness that
Hmm.
is unique in the sense that you could post a photo and like all your friends and family can see it. Um, but like Snapchat, like there's no benefit that I see to Snapchat over texting,
Yeah.
right? There's literally nothing. The ability to just like send photos that disappear to people, like that doesn't feel like something that is necessary for communication.
Not for illicit communication.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And then also I had somebody actually yesterday, I was talking to some folks about just like social media, but also like modern technology. And somebody said to me that, or like to the group in general, that like Snapchat is self-centered and like crazy. And what she cited was just the fact that you open the app and it's literally your face. Like it has
Yeah.
the camera open on your
On
face
the
when you open
selfie.
the
Yeah.
app, which is like every time you open the app, you just see yourself. And I was like, that's like an interesting thought of like that's a reason, like another reason to hate Snapchat. And also just like the Snapchat culture, if you could even call it that, of
Yeah.
like just taking a photo of like a corner of your head and sending it to people. Like
Yes,
that's
I was about to say that. To like
so
maintain a
weird.
streak, it's like, what are you
Yeah.
doing, people? Like, get over yourselves. Oh, I want the little fire emoji next to that person's name. Like, okay, let's calm down here. Um, but yeah, I've seen so many people do that, and I'm like, is this all you do Snapchat for? And like, yeah, I'm like, so you have this social media for the sole purpose of sending some obscure photo of your face to someone to maintain this fire emoji next to their name. What are you doing? Like, what is happening here? Um, yeah, Snapchat's terrible. TikTok's terrible. I hate it all. I hate all social media.
Yeah, and
Uh,
TikTok, I mean,
yeah,
TikTok makes me mad
yeah,
because it's just a perfected version of like addictive scrolling.
yeah.
But then also like the Chinese government's involved with it. It's just like there's so many reasons not to
There's
touch
no
TikTok.
good reason to have TikTok on your phone. There's no good reason to do it. Yeah. I don't know. All right. I think we've sort of talked about the usefulness. Maybe not. We talked about that we use social media for work. So I'm going to say a usefulness that I found. Previous job, I needed Facebook, and it was good because that was the way to reach the majority of people. So my previous position, I worked, um, I guess like in parish mission work, parish administration work, and so the majority of parishioners are older, and the majority of older people use Facebook. So Facebook was the primary means of mass communication with the parishioners. There's other things that exist like Flocknote, which I looked into, um, which might be worth talking to the pastor again, Ben,
Okay.
as a potential thing. But in general, yeah, Facebook like existed for that, so it was good. It was a great way to get that mass communication out to people, and the people that were on Facebook saw the communication. They spread it naturally and organically amongst other people that they knew either weren't on Facebook or they were just friends with, calling them or texting or something. So that worked in a very efficient way. My current position, it's Instagram because the generation that I'm ministering to, college age students and young adult students, or not students, but young adults, is uh, Instagram is their big thing. So we have, this need to reach them where they're at in our ministry, and that involves, um, going to what social media they're on. And for me right now, my current demographic is Instagram people. So I re-downloaded Instagram for the first time in 4 years. And yeah, I mean it's useful. It gets the message out there, people accept it. But again, the pitfall is now I'm on this app that's designed to get me hooked on the app. That's designed to keep me on the app. And it's like that's obviously not my job description is to get addicted to social media, but it's a pitfall now of the situation of I need to be the one on social media, posting events, posting updates, news, whatever to the demographic that I'm trying to reach.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with all those. Yeah, one of the things that I use Facebook for work is Facebook groups. So like
Mhm.
run a young adult group, and we have a Facebook group for the young adult group, as you're familiar. Um, and yeah, like I love the concept of Facebook groups. It works super well. Um, it's easier than like sending out emails and whatnot.
Yep.
But I've had actually, I think three people, maybe four. Yeah, four people in the past couple months, young adults that I've met that I'm like, we do this young adult group. We have a Facebook group. I can add you to it. And they're like, I don't have Facebook. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like, I'm so glad you don't have Facebook. I'm not going to remember to email you every time there's an event,
Yeah,
but
exactly. Yeah.
like, that's so great. And usually it's because they have other social media and they're
Yeah.
just too young for Facebook. But it's also like, yeah, just like one less thing. Like I'm so proud of them. But it also has like made me think like maybe I just migrate to email. But I know that we'll lose people on Facebook if I do that. But yeah, just the thought that yeah, like Facebook groups is a unique thing to use for that. And then again, like you were saying, like the parish I work for has a Facebook page, and that's where they post like all the stuff going on, and like people see that. Um, and so yeah, there are other ways to do it via email, like with Flocknote or another service perhaps, but that like people are more willing to follow you on Facebook than they are to give you like their email. And so like that itself, yeah, it's like you got to meet the people where they're at with that. Um, and same thing with like Instagram, like I use that a little bit for work. I don't really touch it, but I like it happens in
Mhm.
the community. And yeah, like I don't want to encourage people to like have Instagram to connect with us. I remember this when I was a student and I like worked for our Catholic club. And I was the secretary and I was running the Instagram and I remember just being like I like that was there was a point where it's like this is where we have all the information about what's going on is on Instagram or on other social media. And it's like we need another option, right? Because like all these people are maybe on Instagram or other social media, but we don't want like to be like you have to have Instagram in order to be a part of our Catholic community because
Right.
that's not the like I think the goal should be nobody has Instagram personally, but just the thought of like we need an option for people to to get rid of these things or to just not to have these things at all as a choice of virtue. And so I like big push for like yeah paper things to hand out to people, but then it's also like yeah like there are just you got to reach somebody quickly, so you got to do the social media or like a group chat service or something like that. Um, so there are necessities in that. And yeah, and like that's where I see that it's like you can reach people quickly. You can't do that in the same way with like a paper thing or a physical thing,
Mhm.
or even like an email. Like people are less likely to see their email, which is kind of sad uh, than like a Facebook thing. I think.
Yeah, yeah, all of that is not only what I noticed, but it's again, it's what I agree with and hope to aspire to is uh, the dual emotions of, hey, this is our Instagram. I don't have Instagram. That's so awesome. I'm so happy you don't have that. Unfortunately, I now no longer have a way to communicate with you unless you give me your email or your phone number. And now I have to make sure to make a special exception to reach out to you individually to include you in all these things. And that comes with the territory of the jobs that we do, right? I'm not saying like, oh, how inconvenient for me, therefore I'm never going to reach out to you. But it is a little bit of okay, our jobs would be easier if everyone was just on this one social media. We could just focus on this one social media. Um, but also we don't want people to be on social media. You know, we want to use it for its effectiveness in communication, but we also want to walk away from it because of its addictive the design. It's just it's definitely a frustrating balance of things there. And one thing that I know you guys use, 'cause and that I started implementing too with my new job is specifically reaching out to the college age students using Discord, which I would say is a form of social media. You could definitely treat it the same way. It's mostly chat room stuff, but I mean, you can really get addicted to Discord. And I know people that have. Um, but that's also another way of effective mass immediate communication, instant communication is Discord, which is way easier than sending out a mass email. Because I'm running into that problem now where, yes, I collected everyone's email. I've been emailing people, but only a few respond, and then I'm like, hey, everyone join this Discord. And it's like, not a lot of people are joining the Discord. So it's like, are you not getting the emails? Did you decide you don't want to be a part of this? Like, where's the breakdown of communication? But because email is so one-sided, if the other person doesn't respond, I'm left in the dark. Like I have no idea. Did they even open the email? Did they delete the email as soon as they saw it was for me? Did they open it and say, "Oh wait, I didn't mean to sign up for this kind of thing," And it's just like, or is it just simply, "Dang, the events are happening at a time I can't go to," and they just aren't communicating with me because it's very one-sided, and they probably don't see a reason to email me directly to say, "Sorry, I can't go to those events." Um, so there's also just like that the impersonal aspect of email also has like its own downside, even though we would say probably email's better than social media. So there's a lot of give and take in social media for personal use, but also um, for for business use, I guess, professional use, with especially with our jobs and our ministries that we do.
Yeah, I get that, and it is super convenient. Like Discord, especially, which I've grown familiar with in the past few years,
Yep.
is super nice because there's like 1,000 things you can do with it,
Mhm.
and it's very convenient. Yeah, and young people will get on it. And I get how it could be addictive, but I do think that's at least in the way that like I'm using it, I don't think like it would be for the people in our like Discord channels and stuff.
Yeah.
But I
I mean,
think yeah,
yeah, it
if
depends
you
on who
like
you are, because you can join like 50 different servers and just have a constant pinging and notifications on Discord as well.
yeah,
So,
because it's like a gamer thing, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's how it started, and now they are more explicitly like, oh, we're just a general group communication thing.
Right.
Like they have school templates. Hello, everyone. Here's a quick ad break. I have a personal blog over at rpascal.substack.com. There, I have various writings going over my experience in Catholic ministry, general spiritual writings, and something called Rob's Rants, which is just basically a hodgepodge of whatever comes to mind that I feel like I just want to put out there in the blogosphere. So I just started, so there's not much on there yet, but I hope to make it a semi-regular blog post. So if you're interested in following more of my personal thoughts unrelated to analog Catholic and sort of that intersection of Catholicism and technology, then go to rpascal.substack.com and give me a follow.
Everyone, I have a personal blog at apilgrimsplatent.bendabello.com. Again, that's a pilgrimsplatent, platen at bendabel.bendabel.com. Um, I need to redo that because I said it wrong twice.
Okay,
I'm going
go
to
ahead.
restart.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, I have a personal blog at apilgrimsplatent.bendabello.com. There I post lots of random stuff, most of which is unrelated. Um, but it's fun and it's a good time. It's a pilgrim's platen at bendabello.com. Or you could just type in bendabello.com and then click the link for a pilgrim's platen. Also, be sure to check out our blog on analogcatholic.com for analog Catholic related blog posts.
So, Ben, so far we've covered the pros and cons of personal use of social media. We've covered the usefulness and some of the pitfalls in our work with social media. So I think the next kind of two big topics to talk about regarding social media is how to navigate it as a Catholic and then its function in evangelization. And I have pretty strong thoughts about that second one, for sure, but we'll get to that one at the end. But in terms of navigating it as a Catholic, Um, what are your thoughts on that? How do you think, as like a virtuous Catholic man, or for any of the virtuous Catholic women that listen to us, what's some advice for navigating social media well?
Um, I think my first thought would just be like it should be optional.
Yeah.
Right? Like our Lord says, if your right hand causes you to sin or your right eye causes you to sin, pluck it out.
Hmm.
Just the thought that like it's not something that you should need. Obviously, there are necessities in certain jobs, or maybe even certain positions in life, but like it should not be like a priority or something you're seen as like a prerequisite to living in the world. And so if it is something that is a struggle at all, um, and it's a struggle that's not manageable, like it, just get rid of it. I think
Mhm.
that's the big thing, and that's
Yeah.
where like a lot of Catholics land is it's like I don't need this, and so I'm just gonna get rid of it because it's just another distraction from life itself. And so I think that's the big thing. And then I think just yeah, like being aware and moderating as in a general sense. I think what I do, and I do this with a lot of things, especially with technology, is I don't have a smartphone.
Hmm.
Um, it takes a certain level of virtue to moderate your smartphone use well. It takes a certain level of virtue to moderate your social media use well. It takes some virtue, but I would argue less virtue to just get rid of your smartphone or to get rid of social media. And that like that's the route I took.
Yeah.
And it like opens up access to other virtues in my life. Um, and so I think the sense of like you can use it and use it well as like we've talked about a lot of pros to different things. We've condemned certain social medias, um, so take our word on that.
Yeah.
But just the sense that like there is a good way to do it, but it is hard. And so like thinking of it in that way, I think is also helpful.
Yeah, and that's all good stuff, and I really agree with that. And it's absolutely just the flat advice to give anyone is if you're struggling with social media is cut it out, you know. Um, there's various ways to cut it out. It could just be deleting it off your phone. It could be deleting your entire social media account. Um, whatever the degree it needs to be, like just do it. And I think you made a comment of like, oh, the virtuous but not as virtuous route is to just not have it, as opposed to like have it but use it well. And I think there's yeah, there's definitely still virtue in saying like, no, this is not beneficial to me. This is not good to me. I'm not gonna let it be a temptation for me. And that's something I've always struggled with, because what I would want is, this is going back again to like some of the pros of like, okay, so the pro of the Facebook was not mass communication necessarily, but mass uh, acquaintanceship. I don't even know if it's the real word, with like a bunch of people that I've like bumped into by accident, and also some long distance family members that there's a way of like a more constant communication, because I don't necessarily text or call them that often. Um, for Instagram, it's a kind of similar situation. It could be connecting with people that are long distance, but it's also just keeping people in touch with your life, things like that. For Twitter, the pro is, of course, like the news, like I was saying. And so there's a part of me where it's like, I don't want to give up Twitter, because I want to make sure that I have some connection to the news. And I have a very curated selection of people that I follow on Twitter that I trust to give me more accurate, unfiltered news. But I don't have access to them unless I have Twitter. So then it's that struggle of, okay, how badly do I need access to this content? How badly do I actually need to have access to the news? And that's one of the big struggles is it virtuous to just cut yourself out of the world completely if that's not your vocation, right? And if you're listening to this and you're a cloistered monk, I think the first concern is, well, how are you listening to a podcast if you're a monk? But I don't know actually the technology access that monks and cloistered nuns get, but no, the big thing is, unless that's who you are, you're not supposed to not be in the world. You're not supposed to be of the world, right? But we are in the world. So we can't necessarily justify complete ignorance of world events happening. I wish we could. I wish that where like where you and I live, all we had to care about what was happening in the immediate area, and maybe to a greater extent the state, and then to a greater extent the country, and then you get to the world. But each degree, it's less and less care, And this is what I want to say, it's gonna sound extremely crass. It's gonna sound extremely uncharitable, and everyone's gonna get mad at me. I don't care what's happening in the other parts of the world. If they're killing each other, that's their business. I'm not saying it's good, not picking a side, but I'm saying I shouldn't have to carry the emotional weight around in my life about what's happening on the other side of the globe, right? Like we have our own stuff to deal with right in front of us. And I think there's advice that's sometimes given with we need to stop trying to focus on the world. We need to stop trying to focus on change, like these grand ideas of change we can implement, and instead just focus on like what's in front of us. Like, how do I implement change in my life? By being a better husband, by being a better father, by being a better person at my job, like that kind of stuff. Being a better friend to my friends, being a better son and brother, and grandson or whatever to like my family. Like that's how I can actually influence some change in the world. So in the same breath, same degree, social media kind of pulls us out of what's in front of us and puts us out into the grand world. And now all of a sudden, we're being bombarded with just this total, I don't even know how you call it, I just mosh of various tragedies and wars and crimes and this and that from all across the world, and it's nonstop. And so I think I went off on a tangent there. And so the point I'm trying to make is it's good to be keeping up with the news, but not to the degree where you're like consumed by the news. But also, yeah, I don't know. You can't, I don't know. You can't totally bury your head in the sand is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
You
no,
know?
I definitely get that. I think, and again, if we go to like a media episode of the future,
Yeah.
it'd be great to pick up on. But there's this great book called The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by
Okay. Yep.
Stephen Covey. And he puts language to this perfectly. And I remember reading it and I was like, this is exactly what I think. I just didn't know how to say it. But he describes like sort of like a three circles, one, smaller than the other, like inside each other. Um, and the middle circle is your circle of control,
Yep.
and it's what you control or what you like directly impact. And then the circle that's slightly bigger than that is the circle of influence.
Mhm.
And so it's things that we can influence and like do things about, but we don't have complete control over. And then the circle above that is, I think it's the circle of concern. Um, and so things that like we might be concerned about, but we cannot affect at all.
Mhm.
Um, and he talks a lot about like how do we like direct our attention and direct our focus,
Mhm.
because it really cannot be on the circle of concern, because if we direct our attention on these things that we don't have any influence over, like we're just wasting our life.
Yeah.
And so like you're saying, like if people are killing each other on the other side of the globe, like obviously we care, like obviously that's something that's sad, like people are dying. Um, but if we don't have a direct impact on it, like why would we be allowing that to like disturb our peace, or allowing that to take us away
Right.
from things that we can control and places where we can do good? um, and so like obviously there are people that are called to be in positions of leadership and to have a larger circle of control, right? Like the US president
Mhm.
has ideally like some at least influence, I guess, upon what's happening on the other side of the globe. um, but in theory, the people in those leadership positions like are called to that in a specific way, and that's like
Yeah.
a higher, at least a higher earthly calling in a sense. Maybe not officially, but a higher earthly calling than like what we're called to. And ideally, those people are also prioritizing, the things that are more important, like their families and things like that. And so I think, yeah, I think that's a big thing that social media and media in general, um, in like the modern age, is pushing us towards, and it causes a lot of issues,
Mhm.
um, in individuals, in like in the church
Mhm.
structure as a whole, and then yeah, like in the secular world outside of the church, and it's so obvious, that it's so problematic, but it's like really hard to see if you're not thinking about it, I think is a big thing too.
Yeah.
because like of course we care as Christians about people dying, but you need to sort of like go to the next level. It's like, okay, like what can I control in my life?
Right. Right. And that's yeah, like it's a tragedy, but I can't do anything about it. And so if I'm carrying that emotional weight around about like constantly talking about that or focusing on it, like that does not benefit me in my personal life. It does not benefit my family or those that I have obligations to, right? Because my obligations aren't to the people across the world, at least not primarily. I think Thomas Aquinas speaks on the order of charity. And I don't know if he pulls it this way. I've definitely heard it worded this way as well. But it's kind of if you take the commandments, you see the first three commandments are about God, and then the fourth one is honor thy mother, like thy mother and father. And basically, the idea is the number one person in your life, number one person you have obligations to, number one person you serve is God. Like no love, serve God before all else. Then your mother and father, or as like we would take it and expand it, your family, right? Your immediate family. So your parents, your spouse, your children, and then you kind of go from there to your extended family, and then you go from like there to your very close friends, right? And so there's this degree of charity that we have. So like my greater obligation, my greater charitable obligation are for those that are near me, as opposed to those that are far away. I'm not saying you never help those that are far away, right? That's not the point. The point is if we're failing to fulfill the obligations we have for those that are immediate to us, we're not doing well, even if we are helping out those that are far away from us. Um, and yeah, so it comes down to all that kind of stuff. But that could be a whole nother episode, so we need to keep going another rabbit hole. Back to the main question of how to navigate social media as a Catholic. The point I was trying to make is like, yes, I want to be in touch with the news, and I want to try to find a healthy, balanced way of doing it. So I've tried various ways of maybe I just make a private account and I don't do anything, then I fall into that habit or I fall into the desire of, well, I want to comment, and if you in Twitter, if you're a private account, no one sees it unless they follow you. So if I want to comment on a public post, I need to make my account public. Um, and so now I'm public, and if you're public, you want to get attention. So now how are you going to use Twitter to get attention? And if you're using Twitter to get attention, now you need to be on it more often because the way the algorithm works is if you don't post a lot, even when you do post, you're kind of like deprioritized from from people's timelines. So it's like a very nasty thing. That's not just Twitter. That's like everything. I think there's a handful of people that talk about how YouTube's algorithm is absolutely brutal if you don't keep up content. If you're not consistent with uploading things, you'll just be I don't know, not deplatformed, but you'll just have your boost. You get your little artificial boost to the front page or recommendation page, or whatever. It's just like totally erased, and then you become kind of irrelevant. So it's like a very brutal thing where you need to like work hard over like constantly producing content. And like I don't want to do that for Twitter. I think I really enjoy what we do with Analog Catholic, what we did with podcast spending. I just posted one of my first blog posts to my own blog, as you guys heard in the ad earlier. Ben posts stuff to his as well, and I'm actually content with that. That first blog post I sent out, I didn't post it to social media and just say, all right, let's hope it goes. I sent it to friends. I sent it to friends and I said, hey guys, can you take a look at this? Can you give me feedback on this? Like, what did you like? What didn't you like? Like, I want honest criticism. And I think out of like the dozen or so people I sent it to, I think, half responded, um, which I guess is nice that at least half the people read it, maybe more read it, they just didn't respond. Um, and it was like there was good feedback from people. Some people it was just positive. Some people there was, I think you could do this better. I think this worked well, but I think, you worded this not as good as you could have and stuff like that. And I was like, I appreciated that, but I wouldn't have gotten that if I just posted it to social media and left it as is, you know? Um, that came from personal connections and personal relationships that I had to build up. So yeah, I think how to navigate social media as a Catholic, I think I think you just don't make it your life. You don't make it your means of socializing. But I'm gonna let you contribute more to this because like I said, I have a pretty strong thing about our last topic, but I want to hear more of your thoughts, Ben, about how to navigate social media as a Catholic.
Yeah, I think I line up with your thoughts pretty well, and I think yeah, the circles of influence thing I think sticks out to me with it, because yeah, like again, the people that you haven't talked to in 20 years, like why are you concerned about them? And I think sometimes there are good reasons to be. And so I think just, yeah, like taking an inventory of what's happening when you engage with social media, I think is a big thing. And then, yeah, like being intentional with it, as with all things. And so if there's not a reason for you to be engaging with it, if you're doing it for it to be mind numbing, then like there's a problem there.
Yeah.
And sort of like reevaluating that.
Hmm.
I think, yeah, it's like big step. Like as with all things, being intentional is always a good way to approach it.
I think ultimately that's the way to kind of wrap that up is discern why you have social media and why you're using it. If it's for good reasons, moderate yourself, and if you can't moderate yourself, then maybe take a step away. But if your sole attraction to any piece of social media is just, oh, I like to doom scroll. I like to just stare mindlessly at my phone for 2 hours. Delete your accounts, delete the apps off your phone, break your smartphone in half, and then go walk in the woods for 5 hours. Like I don't know. Yeah, I think that's just the way to do it. But this leads us to our final topic. I think we were going to get into today, which is the use of social media for evangelization. I'm gonna drop I'm gonna drop a nuke right now. You ready?
I'm ready.
I do not think Catholic clergy should be able to use social media. Thoughts?
Um, I think I would agree with that
It's
to
more
some
nuanced.
extent.
It's more nuanced than that. It's more
Yeah.
nuanced than that. And
Tell
yeah,
me why clergy are different than laity in this sense.
okay. Um, so the so the nuance of this is it's not a blanket ban on clergy using social media. I'm gonna name two people. There's more, but I'm gonna just name top two clergy that I think use social media correctly for clergy. Bishop Barron, Father Mike Schmitz. Because neither of them get into it in social media. Social media to them is just a vehicle for their evangelization efforts. It's pre-scripted, pre-recorded media. They push and they publish, and they do so for the sake of evangelizing and reaching people where they're at, which is on social media, but they don't get in the weeds. You don't see them commenting publicly. They don't get into arguments. They don't post controversial political takes. They don't get involved in any of that stuff. They just simply post for the sake of evangelization. So I think those are two good examples of clergy on social media. I have seen primarily on Twitter, and I'm sure it exists on Facebook and Instagram and other social medias as well. But I've seen a lot of priests on Twitter just not use social media well. They either get into arguments with people in like uncharitable and unbecoming ways. They post, political takes that you can kind of argue, you can definitely argue actually for some of them are contrary to Catholic teaching. Um, they, I hate to say it, but there are some where their interactions with like women online, I'm like, that's a massive red flag to me. Um, Especially because some of them like do private message them. And it's like there's a sense of you as a priest are representing the Catholic Church on the internet. Excuse me, the cough. And you had to present yourself in such a way. So there's a problem I understand with this. One is, okay, it might not necessarily be like fair to just tell priests like you're not allowed to use social media unless you're doing pre-recorded content for the sake of evangelization, because you're sort of denying them a thing that everyone else uses. And then two, it's not every priest acts like that. I know a handful of other priests who use social media very well and very prudently, and they're presenting themselves as priests. And so it's like that's not an issue. They don't do what Bishop Barron or Father Mike Schmitz are doing, but they're not using social media in any imprudent way or whatsoever. So the nuke take is just ban clergy from using social media because there's just so much risk, right, with the scandal that can be caused through a clergy member's personal social media use. A lot less of a scandal than a layperson's social media use. Not that lay people, you know, have laxer rules, so to speak, but there's just a sense of there's a greater weight on their shoulders to represent the faith well. So what are you doing as a clergy member on social media in presenting yourself in a way that's harmful or negative to the image of the Catholic Church, to the priesthood, that kind of stuff. So I think my nuclear take doesn't have to be, 100% fulfilled. You don't have to ban all clergy from social media, but I think there needs to be a level of prudence and understanding amongst the clergy of how they approach and use social media. Not to say they can't weigh in on political things, because the voice of reason from a Catholic priest is usually pretty good and needed. Um, but that's the thing again is are they talking from a position of Catholic social teaching, Catholic moral teaching, or is it just a personal political belief they haven't really shooken, or shaken off yet, rather? And it's actually not 100% in line with what the church would say on the subject. Those are my thoughts on that part.
Interesting. I think I agree with you for the most part. I think where I'd push back is how would a the issues with Catholic priests saying certain things that are not charitable or um, being weird about women or saying things that don't align with Catholic teaching be different than just a married Catholic man doing those things? I guess I understand the sense that the priest carries with him the sort of he represents the authority of the church, but
Mhm.
like the married Catholic man, if he's a devout Catholic and it is known, does in the same way. Um, and so I think it would also be scandalizing if a married Catholic man did any of those things as well. I understand it's different, but I think there's a clear crossover there.
Yeah, and that's yeah. And the difference is, I think you kind of hit it, is being a member of the clergy is a higher calling than being a layperson. There's a higher responsibility on your shoulder. You are more held to the consequences of, like, I don't know, failing your flock, so to speak, than the layperson is. You know, I think the layperson's responsibility is their family, first, where the clergy member's responsibility is their parish first, or their diocese if they're a bishop, and that's a great many more souls, and that's a greater responsibility on their shoulders because they also have authority. Because like so, there's inherent authority in the priesthood, right? Like if we go up to a priest, we don't outrank the priest in anything. Even if we're smarter than them, even if we are holier than them, even if we have evangelized more effectively than them, a priest has an indelible mark on their soul that sets them apart from the rest of us. They are, well, I'm going to use this word, they're better than us in some ways, and I'm touching on clericalism here, but there's a truth to it, and they have to be, because if they weren't, if they were just equal amongst lay people, then what function does a clergyman serve that a layperson couldn't? And there's a reason that they do set themselves apart. Well, not they don't. God sets them apart from us. There's a reason why that's necessary. And so when they stumble, it's a greater stumble than a layman. When they scandalize, it's a greater scandal than a layman because they're greater than laymen. That's that's just how it is with the way the sacraments are. And that's not a problem, I don't think at least. Historically we've genuflected and kissed the rings of bishops because they are the princes of the church. Like this is not a completely foreign concept to a Catholic. The idea that the clergy are someone set apart for the sake of God's work on this world. So it's the same thing in my mind when you approach it in terms of scandal. They have greater responsibility, they have greater authority. Therefore, when they stumble, it's a greater cause for scandal because they should theoretically have greater holiness. They should be the less likely to sin. And I'm not over here saying clergy need to be sinless or perfect. I know that's not possible. I know that's not how it works. But there is that sense of if anyone should be really prioritizing not causing public scandal, it really needs to be the priests and the bishops, especially because the last, like, I don't know, 40 years at this point, really, their public image has really taken a nosedive. So they really need to be way more careful with how they approach certain things. Um, but that,
Yeah,
that's my thought with it. Yeah.
that makes sense to me, but I do think there's like the standards that are being pointed to of the first three things you cited of like being weird about women,
Hmm.
saying things that are contrary to church teaching, or being uncharitable. Like those are standards we should hold everybody to.
Right.
Um,
Well,
yeah,
right.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah. It's not that they have a different standard. It's just that should they break it, they're, I guess, yeah. I don't know.
I see what you're saying that it's more scandalizing. I get that, but I also think if social media like persists as a public square that most members like of the world are engaged in, I don't think to outright like say clergy shouldn't be there.
Hmm.
I don't think that's the solution. I get what you're saying though too of like evangelization efforts because like I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't look these people up, but like Bishop Barron or Father Mike Schmitz, I don't know if they have personal social media accounts. Like I think they just go through like Word on Fire and Ascension. So like their content, they're
Yeah.
not even like they're not interacting as much, which I think is good. Like I think that's how I approach social media when I do engage in it. Like I'm not looking to interact with strangers. But I don't know. Maybe there's a place for that.
Yeah, I think they do have personal ones, but it's not content they're posting. It's just you have some intern or someone posting it under your
Right.
name, so it's like filtered. But yeah, and you can't. And so this is going to lead into the second part of this, which is the big thing that I was hinting at earlier in this podcast, which was when I was converting to the church. I had no Catholic community in my life because I didn't grow up with a Catholic community in my life. My family wasn't really practicing. I didn't have a family, so I didn't have family members to talk to. I didn't have friends to talk to about the Catholic faith. So when I began to become intellectually curious about the Catholic faith, it was people I met online on social media. And it was through them who I was able to talk to. And they were fantastic. I could talk to them. I could ask them any question, and they had answers. They were like encyclopedic. Maybe they were just Googling. I don't know. But they were patient and kind and responsive and had no problems answering every question I had. These were just anonymous people on Twitter. They were anonymous users on Twitter. Half of them had anime profile pictures. This was back in 2016, and they were great. Any doubt I had, they answered. Any questions I had, they had the answer for it. They could quote the church fathers, they quote the scriptures. They did it. They were great. There was one particular priest. He's a priest because he's not anonymous. His name's Father. I'm gonna give him a shout out. His name's Father Brendan LaRoche. He's in the Diocese of Allentown, I believe, in Pennsylvania. He was great. I doubt he remembers interacting with me because that was like 8 years ago, and he still has a social media presence. Um, but I remember asking him like, I don't even know how to pray. Like how do you pray? And he very patiently responded and told me how to do that thing. How to pray and other questions and stuff. So he's kind of involved in that too. So I absolutely see the benefit of having clergy interact on their personal time in a personal way on social media. I'm uh, I'm a consequence of that. You know, I have experienced positive evangelization efforts from Catholics on social media who I had no prior connections to, other than I just said, "Hey, I'm curious. Can you guys answer these questions for me?" And so I absolutely see the benefits from it. I absolutely see the pros from it. My um, faith would not have started if not for that, but my faith would not have gotten deeper if I didn't get off social media, meet real, actual Catholics, which ended up being focused missionaries at my undergrad, and having them invite me into a real community, having them invite me into prayer time with Christ in a tabernacle, go to adoration, go to mass, receive the sacraments. I had already received First Communion and baptized, and I didn't get confirmed until college. But like be fully initiated, all that stuff. It was from there that my faith truly deepened, truly expanded, and became greater. But that never would have happened if I didn't have that community online first. So at the end of the day, and I'm probably going to write a blog post, so make sure to subscribe to our Substack, inlawcatholic.com. Um, Going deeper on this particular subject because it means a lot to me. But I absolutely see the benefits of evangelization on social media because we need to evangelize where people are at. And unfortunately, we've said this a million times, unfortunately, our generation the younger generations, actually you and I are different generations, whatever. The three more recent generations especially love their social media, so that's where you're going to find them. And for some people, that might be the only community they have. So you gotta reach them in that community because they're not going out to places. They're not going to churches. Because that's the thing. I didn't go walk into a church and say, "Okay, I'm interested in becoming Catholic. Can someone help me out here?" I, I don't know what I would have done. Also, the way the current Catholic parish style works, that would not have worked. I'm not going to go interrupt the mass, so I'd have to talk to people before or after mass. But most people don't interact with strange people at mass. But that could be a whole nother episode. Um, so that's what I wanted to kind of say as the capstone to this episode. Obviously, I want you to respond and say what you feel about this as well. But I do want to point out that despite my nuclear take of clergy shouldn't be on social media, which obviously I don't agree with as a blanket rule, um, there's a lot of fruit that can happen via social media. And I think because of that, we can't just completely cut it out or ignore it while it exists.
Yeah, I think that definitely refutes your previous point. Um, that I've heard that story from you before too, and I
Yeah.
think that like that is a real thing. And yeah, I am looking at what I think is Father Brendan on Twitter, and he's
Yeah, I think his at Padre Brendan.
yeah, that's what I
Total
see.
shot, just this random podcast that he
Yeah,
probably doesn't know exists, just calling him out in a
he's about
positive
to.
way. In a positive way.
He has a tweet that says the prequels are bad movies that love Star Wars. The sequels are bad movies that hate Star Wars.
Yeah, he's also
That's an
kind of a
interesting differentiation.
yeah, he's first off, he's actually a very bright and very intelligent priest, and he's very good at making distinctions. And that tweet I think is a perfect example. And then two, he's a big nerd. So if someone's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go follow this priest on Twitter," like, yes, he's great, but also be prepared because most of his tweets are actually just nerdy stuff. Um, Not to knock him because I like most of the stuff he talks about, but yeah, just forewarned.
Yeah, I agree, and I think again that's an example of a priest being in social media as a public square and engaging well, and yeah, like leading to very significant reversion, which led to this podcast. So really,
Really, should we put him in the credits for this episode?
probably
Give him some royalties. No, that's just a joke for legal reasons. That's a joke. But no, it's true. Like the butterfly effect of that type of thing. Like if he wasn't there to answer that question, maybe someone else would have. But would it have been the same? Would they have worded it as well as he did? Would it have been as effective? Like I don't know. We don't know. Um, So yeah, it's crazy to think because like again because of that reversion, like I got married and found my wife who I love. So it's like, do I have to thank him now for that too? Maybe a little bit, but um, it's just you never know. You never know the impact you're gonna have, even with just one conversation with someone, if it's genuine and about the faith, and if it's in person or if it's on social media. Which I think again, just it puts that weight on your shoulder of you need to be virtuous and moderate on social media. You need to be cultivating a presence that doesn't cause scandal. Um, not scandal to the world, because we don't care about that. Scandal to faithful Catholics. Because our existence is a scandal to the world. So we obviously can't avoid that. But all right, do we have anything else, Ben, before we wrap up here?
no. I think we solved it.
All right, we solved the use of social media and its existence. And for all you virtuous Catholics out there, we know you're doing well. For all you non-virtuous Catholics out there, that's okay. We're praying for you. Um, and you got this. Just delete your social media. Just do it. Actually, honestly, after this, I might just do it. I might just go do this after this episode ends. Just be done forever. Lock myself into
Amazing.
a tent in the woods and never return.
Perfect. A 10 with a lock.
Yeah. All right.